catch. Did we miss any?
Well, what are you waiting for?
I don't know. Something amazing, I guess.
The Incredibles is known for being an amazing couple of films with some amazing powers you would love to have. But along with great power comes great mistakes. Here's some you might have missed. Number 1. While Jason Lee is brilliant as the voice actor for Syndrome, Syndrome is not as brilliant as he appears. You see, Syndrome has made his life all about following around Mr. Incredible for revenge. But despite knowing his home phone and how to send him an exploding message, he doesn't know he lives with and has a full family?
You married Elastigirl? And got busy!
Number 2. While Dash isn't the wisest kid in the world, no child who's capable of running on water would forget they can do that. In the first film, there is a perfectly hilarious moment of Dash discovering he can run on water. But in the second film, he has no idea how to pursue the villain's boat. Come on, Dash, we know you can do it. Number 3. We don't want to only rag on Syndrome, but don't some of his plans confuse you? In the first film, after Syndrome captures the entire Parr family, he leaves them alive, for seemingly no reason. He was trying to end them before, so it's not like he always wanted them just captured. They are only kept alive so they can foil his plan, really. Number 4. Syndrome isn't the only villain with confusing gear. In The Incredibles 2, the screenslaver's devices are goggles and screens that hypnotize people. Helen Parr often just turns away from the screens. So wouldn't the hypnosis of this film have no effect if people just looked away? How about if Helen just closes her eyes when she has the goggles on? Boom, saved. Number 5. The family went through so much and in the end, it didn't even matter. Linkin Park. The whole point of the first film was that the whole family learned they needed each other to avert disaster. And the second movie has the exact same beat at the end, with Helen being proud her kids joined the fight. But we already knew she felt that way. The lesson was learned.
How could I be mad? I'm proud.
Number 6. Are you petty? Because we're petty. This mistake is very petty. But can we just say that Evelyn is the most obvious twist villain of any film ever? Ever? And it's a mistake because they wanted to surprise us. But no one was surprised. It's a great film, but this was not surprising. She's just sitting there, doing nothing, menacingly.
So you're the screenslaver.
Yes and no.
Number 7. We're not so sure Mr. Incredible is that incredible. In Incredibles 2, apparently Bob is incapable of moving massive objects around when he asks another hero to uncrush these pipes in the boat. We're pretty sure he has a little something called super strength that could do the same thing. Number 8. Electric cars are the future, but electric bikes? Not so much. In Incredibles 2, Helen's superbike explodes just moments after she said it was an electric one. Now, there are Teslas that have, caught on fire and exploded, but this explosion is just a little too big. It doesn't quite add up. Number 9. Speaking of driving concerns, let's talk about car safety. In the first film, after Helen finds the hair on Bob's suit, she goes to him while he is in the car and says, "Have a great trip, I love you so much." Bob backs the car out of the driveway. He backs out and turns, but you can see his hand on the top of the steering wheel doesn't move. Number 10. Were you allowed to have sugary cereal in the morning? It's not clear if the Parr family is. In Incredibles 2, Dash isn't allowed to have sugary cereal. But if that's the case, why is it open and out in the first place? To tease him? Bob really is a bad parent. Number 11. What does autopilot even do? Apparently not much. In Incredibles 2, Helen pushes autopilot on this plane, even though it's about 3 seconds from crashing directly into the ocean. I'm not sure what she expected to happen, but she's a good pilot, we know this. Number 12. Time for some more Syndrome singeing. Syndrome specifically has Bob fight the robot to make it better, but the one way Bob defeated it was by having its own claws tear itself apart. However, this works again at the end of the film. If Syndrome was really working on the robot, and he's a genius who does that kind of thing, wouldn't he have fixed this? Syndrome is maybe not as smart as he leads on. Number 13. Most of the rich people have made some pretty big mistakes in this franchise. Another example is Winston Dever's dad tried to call the superheroes even though they were just famously and publicly banned from being legal to work. He would have been in the loop, and so wouldn't have made this mistake logically. Number 14. Violet should have figured this one out sooner. In Incredibles 2, Violet is only suspicious of her parents when she sees her mom's boots. But as you can see, the suits were easy to spot right at the beginning, and much more revealing in what her parents were up to than the boots. Number 15. Cops are supposed to back each other up, right? Not this one, apparently. This poor cop from The Incredibles doesn't get any backup from all the other cops around him for the jewelry store until it's too late to stop the thieves from escaping. But he was right there. The cops should have noticed, or he should have said something to them. Very strange. Number 16. How fast can you read? If you read fast enough, the newspaper article here would have looked silly to you, as half of it is just the insurance company employee manual from Bob's previous work. Guess the animators just didn't think anyone would check. Whoops. They do it on this side too. Double whoops. Number 17. We all get carried away, but you think a superhero would take pressure better. In this scene from The Incredibles, Bob cuts through Dash's plate, saying he's gotta now fix the table. But you don't have to fix the table, Bob, just throw out a plate. It's at most a scratch in the table. Number 18. This one is a lesson for all the school principals out there. It seems this principal didn't watch the teacher's incriminating tape before he called Helen in, as only at the end does he think the teacher is crazy. Well, he should have watched the tape first before he called the parents in. Number 19. Shout out to all our cat lovers out there. In the opening scene of The Incredibles, Mr. Incredible is in a rush to stop some bad guys, shaking a cat out of a tree. But if he was in such a rush, why not put the tree down instead of do this? The cat will have had to leave the tree eventually. Number 20. There's no superpower better than the US government. Bob's contact from the agency to relocate superheroes mentions that he needs to erase memories because of what Bob did. But hold the phone. If this guy can erase memories, why do they need to relocate Bob at all? Just erase their memories of him throwing that dork boss through 8 walls. Number 21. More issues with Syndrome and his rich but shoddy organization. The first time Mirage contacts Bob, the message self-destructs at the end. But later she just straight up calls him at his home phone number where literally anyone can answer. Now, based on the logic from before, they somehow don't know he has a family. But then when he screams, "I got it," while Mirage is on the line, would she not then say, "Oh, it seems like he has a family, I better tell my villain boss"? Number 22. This isn't impossible, but it's a lot to digest. While Bob tries to sneak into Syndrome HQ, thank goodness Mirage is looking down while walking so she doesn't notice this massive stone being moved in front of her at the same time. Number 23. We've all had our moms get mad at us for something that probably makes no sense, but this is a bit odd. At home, when the kids discover their supersuits for the first time, Dash is in trouble while wearing his. Because, as Helen says, someone will see it. But who is going to see it in this private bedroom only the 3 of them are in? Number 24. Too much sneaking makes Dash a dull boy. When Helen goes after Bob in the first film, the kids stow away on the jet. But how did they arrange a sitter so quickly, follow Helen to the jet, then hide in the jet to make all of this happen? We're glad they did it, just seems like a lot to organize. And without Helen noticing any of it so quickly.
That was totally wicked!
Those were all our favorite mistakes in the incredible films we noticed. Any you noticed that we didn't mention?
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was a groundbreaking entry in the non-Disney MCU Marvel canon, but it wasn't without its mistakes. It can't be easy for animators to track everything in a movie that's this multi-dimensional. Literally. But we couldn't help but get a little distracted once we started seeing the errors and inconsistencies. Did you catch these mistakes when you went into the Spider-Verse? Number 1. We give this headline 2 stars. Remember when a devastating review of Guy Fieri's Times Square restaurant went viral? Well, so did the creators of Into the Spider-Verse. This clearly inspired the movie's newspaper pan of the parody chain restaurant TGI Spidey's. Brilliant as the cultural reference may be, it deserves some critique of its own. The paper reads, "Spider-Man is New York's hero, its savior," placing an apostrophe in the "its" where it doesn't belong. Number 2. Do Spider-Man's powers include optical illusions? A scene where Miles finds himself in trouble has some shadows of inconsistency. Jefferson indicates he can see Miles' shadow moving while Miles is tied up, but when Miles is moved against the door, a second look at the shadow shows no changes to the size or location of the shadow. The shadow also doesn't appear to be cast on the other side of the door where it should be. We don't necessarily understand all the physics of the Spider-Verse, but this seems a little suspicious. Number 3. That was easy cleanup. In a scene outside Aunt May's house with Peter, Miles, and Gwen, Peter starts to walk away from his new Spidey family. Gwen isn't having it and shoots a web to pull him back. In the next shot, her web has worked to bring Peter back, but the web is completely gone. Now how can we get this solution for the cobwebs in the corner of our attic? Number 4. Look who's back. In the battle royale between the Spider-Verse heroes and the collection of Spider-Man villains at Aunt May's house, there are a lot of characters to keep track of. We may not know the exact location of each hero and villain at every moment, but we feel like the animators should. That's why it's so surprising when Aunt May knocks Tombstone out of the house with a bat, only for him to appear back inside the house in a subsequent shot. We're still proud of Aunt May anyway. Number 5. These two are not identical. In a delightful reference to the internet's favorite Spider-Man meme, Into the Spider-Verse has a Spider-Man from one universe head to encounter a Spider-Man from another universe to engage in lots of pointing at each other. There's a police car in the background, but the writing on the side changes mid-scene. In the first shot, the car reads NYPD 5087, but when we cut back, the periods between the NYPD initials and the precinct number are gone. Number 6. Things get a little hairy for a minute. Miles gets his sticky webby fingers stuck in Gwen's hair in a classic embarrassing high school moment. We've been there. But notice that Miles' thumb is now wrapped up in Gwen's tresses when the incident occurs. A while later, when Miles shows evidence of the shameful encounter, all 5 of his fingers are covered in blonde locks. Miles, wash your hands, dude. Number 7. We're ripping this animation apart limb from limb. During a fight sequence, Dr. Octopus wraps up Spider-Man with 2 of her arms, uses one to hang to the ceiling and another to attempt to end him. When we cut to wide and see Miles fight back, she's only holding him with one arm and there's a second arm on the ceiling. In the next shot, it's back to the original positioning. Number 8. Miles makes a lousy thief. In Olivia's office, we see Miles trying to get away with both a computer tower and a monitor. When Olivia threatens Peter Parker and we cut to Miles again, he's now only carrying the tower, not the monitor. Honestly makes sense since all the data is probably on the tower anyway. Number 9. Hey diddle diddle, what's wrong with this fiddle? Miles is fiddling with his pen while trying to come up with his paper in school. The pen moves anxiously in the crook of his thumb, but in the next angle the pen is being twiddled between his index and middle fingers. Mistakes like this are so disappointing. We had great expectations. Number 10. In what universe does hair do this? In a nod to the iconic kiss between Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst, the Mary Jane of Miles' universe is shown kissing Spider-Man while hanging upside down. Only her hair stays upright and perfectly styled. Maybe Spider-Man hooked her up with web in her hairspray because we've never seen hold this powerful. Number 11. This door comes out swinging. When we first see Aunt May open her door, it swings outward. In all future shots, the door opens inward. You know, the way all front doors actually do in the real world. Number 12. Mamma mia, this is a big mistake. Peter Parker is lying on the floor and grabs the second to last slice of pizza, leaving one slice in the box. But when we get the overhead shot, there are 2 slices of pizza in the box. We knew New York pizza was the best, but we didn't know it could magically multiply. Number 13. Drink up. When Miles is meeting with Peter Parker over burgers and fries, it seems like his meal came with a drink. Or did it? His big cup and straw completely disappear between shots. Number 14. What's with Miles and these vanishing monitors? Initially, we see a 2-monitor setup along with a microscope in Miles' room. But in another shot, his desk is down to 1 monitor and there's no microscope to be found. Number 15. It's time to face the music. So how exactly does object permanence work in the Spider-Verse? Because a boombox next to Miles disappears between shots, and in the same scene he picks up a backpack that wasn't next to him in the previous angle. Number 16. Dr. Olivia speaks for herself. A video being projected in class has no on-screen text, but when the teacher pauses to scold Miles for arriving late, there's a lower third subtitle identifying Alchemax head scientist Dr. Olivia over the same frozen frame. It was probably an idea later in production to introduce the audience to Dr. Olivia here, but we were paying about as much attention as these high school students and barely noticed until it was time to catch this mistake. Number 17. A fire hydrant grows in Brooklyn. As Miles makes his way through the streets of New York, he jumps up to tap a street sign on a corner with no fire hydrant. But when we cut to wide after he faceplants in the street, there's suddenly a fire hydrant there. Crazy how that happens. Number 18. It's a Christmas miracle. Miles knocks into a laptop that's playing a Spider-Man Christmas special, causing it to spin on the desk and face the door. But in the next shot, it's facing the opposite direction as if Miles never bumped into it. Number 19. Miles is a little tied up at the moment. When Miles finds himself in disarray on the floor, his tie is flipped over his shoulder amongst the other chaos strewn about. In a different angle, the objects around him are all in their exact same positions, only the tie has switched to the opposite shoulder. Number 20. Your shoe's untied. Or is it? In an encounter with Spider-Man, Spider-Man notices Miles' shoes are untied, but in the next shot we see Miles' shoes and they're not untied at all. What are you trying to pull here, Spider-Man? Number 21. Spider-Ham is making moves. Again, we'll stress that we do not have a PhD in multiverse mechanics, but we think this teleportation is animation error, not some supernatural force. When the various versions of Spidey gather from their universes at the Collider and begin glitching out, Spider-Ham is initially on top of the case containing the black and yellow Spidey suit. In the next shot, he is moved to the right and appears on the blue and red suit. The other characters seem to remain in their spots, so this definitely seems to be a bug, not a feature. Number 22. Was that Gwen? In a brief moment of dialogue, Gwen is saying one thing, but her lips are saying something else. When Gwen pointedly declares, "You don't get to like my haircut," her mouth movements don't align with her speech. Accurately syncing animated lip movements and dialogue seems mind-bogglingly difficult to us, so we won't be too hard on the animators for this one mismatch moment. What did you think of all these mistakes and continuity errors in Into the Spider-Verse?
Are you sure about this?
It's time they know.
Be honest, when you first watched Frozen and Frozen 2, you wanted to move to Arendelle, right? We all did. But did you notice the mistakes that slipped in? We're going over all the animation mistakes and weird plot holes you missed in Frozen and Frozen 2.
If they can settle and listen.
Number 1. Our first mistake is pretty mystifying. When Kristoff and Olaf are denied entry into the huge wall of mist, we see them back up next to Sven, Elsa, and Anna in front of the wall. But in the next wide shot, when Elsa attempts to cross, Sven, Olaf, and Kristoff are completely out of sight. Where'd they go?
You think I'm crazy?
Number 2. Here the gang is playing a game of charades.
Worried? Panicking? Disturbed?
But take a closer look at the props on the floor. There are several game pieces here next to Sven, but in the next shot, the sand clock switches positions all on its own. And if we keep going, there they go again. What is up with these things? Number 3. This one is definitely tough to make sense of. When the group face the people living in the forest, Anna is holding a sword with icicles pointing toward her. But moments later, even though Anna hasn't moved, the icicles are facing away from her. Explain this one, animators.
That was magic. Did you see that?
Number 4. We'll admit the Arendelle castle is pretty impressive, but we didn't know it can make furniture disappear. While singing, Elsa pauses at a huge table and mirror against the wall. Once she turns the corner, the table and mirror seem to have disappeared altogether.
Nothing. Air.
Number 5. For this one, we're looking at the dam destruction scene.
Destroy the dam! Come on! Throw your boulders!
When the rock giants throw boulders at Anna, one of them clearly damages the center of the bridge. Anna turns the other way only for another boulder to collapse at the far end of the bridge. If you're following us here, Anna should be trapped at this point, but she somehow runs back over the middle part as if nothing happened to it. There's just no way she should have gotten over this bridge. Number 6. Check out this weird mistake with Olaf's arm. When Anna and Olaf are in the boat, Anna grabs Olaf's arm and his hand is pointing toward her. In the next shot, his hand is now pointing away from her. The flexibility of this stick arm just astounds us.
Give me a hand!
Number 7. Here's an obvious slip-up. In this scene, Elsa is asking Kristoff to borrow the wagon and Sven.
I'm not very comfortable with the idea of that.
As he refuses, we can see that Sven is right behind him. The scene continues and the shots go back and forth. But a few moments later, Sven is no longer behind Anna and Kristoff. It looks like he disappeared from this scene. Number 8. When Honey Marin talks to Elsa at the fire, she places her cup down right next to her leg, but somehow it disappears moments later. Looks like animators had trouble keeping track of quite a few details in this sequel. Number 9. Focus on the background here.
Wake up!
When Anna runs out of the forest and faces the rock giant, take note of the layout and thickness of the branches behind her, because in no time at all, they'll change all on their own. They seem quite thicker and their layout has definitely changed. Number 10. Move away from that cliff. When Anna faces the guards to tell them the dam needs to be destroyed, the guard to the left is very close to the edge of the cliff. In the next shot, we can see quite a bit of space between him and the edge now. Did he do a quick little side shuffle while we weren't looking? Number 11. Here we've got our first logic mistake on our list. We all know that in Frozen, Elsa's iconic song, Let It Go, ends with her stating that the cold never bothered her anyway. In Frozen 2, in the scene with Elsa's gorgeous hair down, her hands begin to freeze, and eventually her entire body does too. But if the cold never bothers her anyway, why is she freezing here?
Never mind.
Number 12. We've got questions. When Anna sings The Next Right Thing, She places the strap of her bag over her hair on her shoulder. A few seconds later though, her hair is now over the strap even though Anna didn't move it herself. Number 13. Speaking of weird hair mistakes, let's move on to the first Frozen movie. When Elsa begins to sing Let It Go, she lets her hair down, and we're here for it. But when she sweeps her braid to the front, it weirdly passes through her shoulder instead of over it. Now, this is one mistake no amount of awesome snowy powers can explain. Number 14. Could Anna have had a normal upbringing after all? We found out on her coronation day that Anna has been locked inside the castle since the day the doors were closed. All of this was to keep Elsa's powers from becoming public knowledge. But since the trolls erased Anna's memories about it as a child, Anna could have been let out to live a normal life.
And you never told us this before?
We guess she'll never know how it feels to be a regular teenager in Arendelle. Number 15. When Elsa and Anna argue over her sudden engagement, it's a heartbreaking scene between the sisters. But we're focused on the mistake here.
What are you so afraid of? Enough!
In the first shot, there's no one behind Anna. But in the second shot, Hans, the Duke, and the Duke's men appear right behind her, seemingly out of nowhere. Number 16. Here's a mistake that seems to defy the movie's logic. When Elsa turns all of Arendelle into eternal winter, all forms of water freeze solid, even the lake. But Anna later falls into a creek of running water. Why didn't it freeze too? Perhaps it's because the water is running, but it seems more likely the animators slipped up on this one. Cold. Number 17. We know that Elsa's powers are withheld when she wears gloves on her hands. However, in this scene, her powers seem to be able to pass through her shoes when she uses her feet to freeze the ground. So, gloves stop her powers, but shoes don't. Doesn't make much sense.
No.
Number 18. What are they standing on now? When Elsa begins to unfreeze everything, the crew is standing on the frozen lake. But when the water begins to melt around them, they are suddenly on a ship. Maybe it was stuck underwater, but just doesn't seem that likely. Number 19. Do we have any physics nerds watching? It's a known fact that when met with extreme cold, metal shatters. So when Elsa uses her powers to escape from metal shackles, they should have shattered here, not bended into a deformed shape.
How do you know that?
We guess the animators didn't know that metal only bends when extreme heat is applied to it. Number 20. Everybody loves the trolls, but even they can't escape a mistake. When the trolls sing about Kristoff and Anna, the song mentions not seeing a ring on Anna's finger. Thing is though, there's no way they could have known this because Anna's wearing thick mittens in the entire scene. Number 21. Did Olaf just up and leave this scene?
Hey!
Sorry. On the icy staircase, Olaf can be seen right next to Anna, but in the next two shots, he vanishes. We would understand if he slid down the slippery ice stairs, but we're sad to see him disappear. Number 22. In the ice cutting scene, there is no way the workers' saws should be able to cut through the ice that easily. Ice that can hold human weight always needs the help of drill holes before a saw can be cut through it with this much ease. We're willing to let this one slide. The odds of animators being ice cutting pros is pretty slim. Number 23. Something looks off here. In this shot, we can see rock uncovered by snow next to the entrance to Elsa's castle. But in this next angle, the snow covers more of the mountain. Seems Elsa's powers can do more than we thought.
Now that's ice.
Number 24. Is there some sort of force field we don't know about here? During the intense and windy storm scene, snow flies all around the characters. But oddly, none of it seems to touch, land, or stick to their clothing or hair at all. Number 25. One thing about snow is, it always leaves tracks. Or does it? When Kristoff and Sven walk up a snowy hill, their footprints are seen in the powder behind them. In the next shot, Kristoff looks back and their tracks are completely gone. Animators can't catch everything, but this seems pretty big. Number 26. In this adorable scene with Sven, Kristoff strums his lute and sings. We can clearly see 4 chords, but there's only 3 tuning pegs. If there's any musicians watching, you'd know there should be 4 tuning pegs, 1 for each chord. Number 27. When Kristoff is attacked by wolves during the sleigh ride, Anna comes to his rescue. She lights the blanket on fire with a torch and tosses it. But somewhere along the way, the torch is dropped. But even after it's dropped, we can't see it. Even if she dropped it onto the sleigh's trailer, it would have caught on fire. Weird.
This is why we Don't play with fire.
Number 28. Here's another hair-related slip-up. When Anna and Kristoff get tossed by the ice monster, Anna's headscarf is gone from her head. But don't worry, in the next shot, it somehow makes it back onto her head. Even though we love to revisit this snowy paradise, we still can't figure out how creators might explain some of the confusing plot holes and mistakes in Frozen and Frozen 2.
I still have so many questions.
Tell us about your theories in the comments.
Hello?
The Toy Story franchise helped answer a question you probably wondered as a kid. What do your toys do while you're not looking? But we have a better question. What mistakes did animators let slide when you weren't looking? Check out these unbelievable slip-ups in all the Toy Story movies. Number 1. We're starting things off with a continuity error you might have missed in the background. And there's loads of these on our list, so stay tuned. Let's start with Toy Story 4. In this scene, Woody is watching Bonnie play before she heads to kindergarten orientation. Notice how Ham is laying down next to her right here. But when Bonnie's parents come to get her, the next shot rolls around and yep, Ham has moved over here and he's somehow standing up on his back legs now. Weird, right?
All right, nobody look till I get my cork back in.
Number 2. In this scene, we get a look at Bonnie's first day of school. How hectic is this? At one point, Woody throws crafting materials on Bonnie's table after a bully steals hers. This spoon is facing toward the cup here, but just wait. In the next shot, it's facing away from the cup. Oh, and we don't have a photographic memory or anything, but we do have the ability to rewind. That spork was actually a spoon a few seconds ago. See? No little teeth.
I can't believe talking to a spork.
Number 3. At the fair, Buzz ends up face-to-face with one of the most elegant and sanitary experiences society has to offer, a lineup of porta potties. But watch this positioning mistake. When the door swings open, Buzz gets hit and he clearly flies to the left of the screen. So he should have landed to the side of the door, right? Wrong. He somehow lands right in front of the door. We don't know about you, but we think someone in animation didn't think this one through.
You know what? Leave that to us. We know exactly what to do.
Number 4. For this one, we're back in Bonnie's class. Turns out we forgot to point out another mistake here. Based on these different shots of the class when the students are running around, we counted at least 11 kids, including Bonnie. So if there's at least 11 kids, why are there only 9 cubbies in the back here? Seems students will have to draw straws to find out who gets a spot. Another mistake editors let slide. Number 5. At the Second Chance Antique store, there's a mistake sitting right at the front door. At first, Harmony's grandmother puts the sign out to the left of the front door, right here. But shortly after, the sign ends up on the right side. We suppose grandmother could have run outside to switch the sign from its original spot, but it just doesn't make much sense. Number 6. Let's move on to Toy Story 3. If we had to guess which mistake on our list you definitely didn't see, it's this one. On Andy's board, there's a bunch of papers and pictures. But let's pause on the 2 tickets marked for Saturday, November 17th, 2009. Seems like a detail you'd just gloss over if you saw it while watching the movie. But if you were to look at the year 2009 on a calendar like we did, November 17th falls on a Tuesday, not a Saturday. Number 7. At this point in the movie, Woody is on his own and gets into all sorts of trouble. Notice what's right next to the cowboy as he's standing in the hallway. When he sneaks under this janitor cart and grabs on, the floor sign he was just next to disappears. Did the janitor pick it up in the blink of an eye? Or did yet another prop get lost in editing? Number 8. Let's stay with this scene for a minute. When Woody is still hiding under the janitor cart, it stops near a bathroom stall. Notice that there's only a small gap between the front of the cart and the stall. I think you know where we're going with this. In the next shot, the gap between the two is way bigger, like the cart moved back 2 feet on its own. Maybe the floors need leveling in this bathroom. Number 9. It's pretty much the basis of the movie that Andy and his family can't see the toys move. In this scene, Buzz and Woody are about to get caught out of place. As they jump out of Andy's dresser, this bottom drawer stays open. But later, when Andy, his sister, and his mom walk in, the drawer seems to have closed itself. There's no way to get around this mistake. Number 10. See if you can explain this one for us. When Woody is tossed in the air by Bonnie, a porcupine is right next to him in midair. By his position, it's clear he'll land on Woody's right. Somehow, the porcupine lands on Woody's left, and it's well below him on the bed. We certainly aren't physics experts, and it seems the animators weren't either. Number 11. When Jessie is stuck in the cage, it's definitely a sad moment, but let's focus on the mistake here. See the A from Andy written under her boot? It's clearly at the base of her boot, near the heel. When she's at Sunnyside Daycare, the A is at the tip of the boot, near the toe. Number 12. Now, on to Toy Story 2. This mistake might feel familiar. That's because it's similar to the one we just saw happen to Jessie. When the toy fixer paints over Woody's boot, the A from Andy under the boot is at the tip. When Woody eventually wipes off the paint, the A is now at the base near the heel. Come on, animators, this is such an iconic part of Woody. Number 13. Alright, now this one is a little freaky. Buzz uses his dashing moves to jump to Woody's rescue here. When he uses the race car track to get to Woody, there's an animation glitch. Let's see that again. His arm goes completely through the loop in the track. We were so busy being amazed by Buzz's agility that we almost missed this questionable glitch. Number 14. When Ham and Rex are watching TV, a subtle mistake sneaks in. Ham turns off the TV after stealing the remote from Rex, but when the shot pans to the TV's blank screen, there's no reflection of the two toys in it. There should have been, considering they're standing right in front of it and the room behind them is reflected. Number 15. In this scene, we see a new part of Andy's room, the dusty shelves that seem to hold forgotten toys. When Woody gets placed on that shelf, he meets Wheezy, an adorable penguin who lost his wheeze. It's obvious that Wheezy has been living between these two books here. However, a few shots prior, we see between those two very books, and Wheezy is nowhere to be seen. Number 16. This one seems too good to be true. When Potato Head crosses the street with a cone over him, he gets stuck in gum and can't move. Meanwhile, a roller is barreling down on him. In one shot, he's close to the middle of the roller. He's about to get smushed, but in the next overhead shot, he is much closer to the end of the roller and makes it out, even though he didn't take any steps. We're glad he's okay. But how does this make sense? Number 17. Finally, let's look at the original movie. Even this masterpiece isn't immune to mistakes. The sunroof can clearly be seen on the family car in several shots, but when the family returns home from getting pizza, the sunroof isn't there. We might be able to forgive this small detail. Number 18. Let's take a closer look at Andy's room. The wallpaper in this shot goes all the way to the ground, but in this shot of the same wall, the wallpaper only covers half of it. There's always been a lot going on in Andy's room, and we know it's hard to keep up with every detail, but this is one we need an explanation for. Number 19. In this scene, Woody is trapped under a crate at Sid's house. As much as we hate to see our pal on the brink of being hurt by some creepy-looking toys, we've got to point out a mistake. There is clearly a book behind Woody in the crate. So why is it that when Buzz helps him out, the book is nowhere to be seen? We knew Buzz would come through, but we're still scratching our heads on this slip-up. Number 20. Back in Andy's room, the toys scramble because they got wind that Andy was coming back through the baby monitor. Speaking of the baby monitor, it's next to Woody here, right? In the next wide shot, it weirdly vanishes. As if that wasn't enough of a mistake, it reappears next to Woody moments later. Number 21. Here's another prop mistake you missed. Outside of Hannah's room, there's a string of lights sitting next to the wall. A few seconds later, the lights are gone. Did someone pick them up while we weren't looking? Number 22. Buzz has lots of cool features on his suit and helmet, but we're pretty sure his helmet doesn't have windshield wipers. Or does it? When Woody cleans the bug off Buzz's helmet, there's a smudge from the bug left. Moments later, the smudge stain is gone and we didn't see Buzz clean it off. Number 23. This last one is making us question if the furniture in our house can move like the toys in this movie. When Andy uses the footrest of the chair to catapult Woody, the footrest stays up. Not a moment later, it's somehow down on its own, and nobody put it down. Explain this one. Can you believe how subtle some of these mistakes were? It's no wonder animators made some slip-ups. They were a little busy making some of the most iconic characters in Pixar history after all. Did we miss any mistakes from all 4 films? Let us know in the comments.
You know why I have this bucket?
Because the roof is leaking?
No, that's the bucket for the leak.
Is that a disappearing hippo?
What did you say?
Come on, we gotta know if you caught all the little mistakes in the Sing franchise. Number 1, this helicopter does things a little bit backwards. If you're not a helicopter engineer, you probably didn't catch this. In this scene, Mike is sucked up into a helicopter. We think maybe the folks who made this movie confused helicopters with vacuum cleaners, because this wouldn't actually happen. Helicopters actually create a downdraft, so in reality, Mike would have been blown away from the helicopter rather than getting sucked upwards. Interestingly, this actually isn't the only physics-defying moment in this particular scene where things are basically done in reverse.
You gotta be kidding me.
Number 2. Is this microphone upside down, or is it just us? Okay, let's rewind for a second. In the same scene, as Mike is getting sucked up by the helicopter's draft, Mike is hanging onto the microphone so as not to go flying into the air. It's clear that the microphone is attached to the stage by a cord, yet when the helicopter moves away, Mike starts swinging around by the microphone cord. Then, out of nowhere, after we see a shot of the surprised audience members, suddenly it seems like the microphone is plugged into the sky, and Mike dangles from the microphone cord that's coming from an entirely different direction. Number 3. This piano got a serious makeover in about 1 second. Here, when Johnny is playing the piano, we can see that the piano keys are a little worse for wear. They're old and broken, and the wood is showing through. Yet, miraculously, they're all fixed in the next frame. This piano looks as good as new, if only things got repaired that easily in real life. Number 4. This monkey does a quick change so quick he'd be fit for Broadway. Pay very close attention to this monkey in the audience. He goes from wearing a blue and white t-shirt and blue beanie to wearing an entirely different outfit just seconds later. Now he's got on a yellow shirt and an orange beanie. How? Why, he must have very quickly changed clothes between frames, we guess. Number 5. Add ambidextrous porcupine to the list of phrases you weren't expecting to hear today. After monkey quick change, of course. But seriously, what's up with this guy? It seems that Ash's boyfriend is a left-handed guitarist, but later he's seen playing as a righty. We'll admit that's a pretty good skill for a porcupine guitarist to have. And it seems he's not the only one in this movie who has 2 dominant hands instead of 1.
Oh, really?
Yes, really!
Number 6. Buster Moon's note-taking raises some serious questions. The main question being, which hand does this guy actually write with? When Buster Moon is taking notes, he switches which hand he writes with. Seriously, these animators have to pay closer attention to whether the characters are righties or lefties when they're working on the inevitable Sing 3. Number 7. Are those color-changing glasses? In the opening scene of Sing 2, there are 3 white rabbits with pink, purple, and green sunglasses respectively. Yet the rabbit sunglasses actually change colors in the next scene and then back again in the next. Number 8. How can a hippo just vanish? Well, we're pretty sure it can't. Still, in this scene in Sing 2, the hippo is there, and in the next moment, poof, they're gone. Did you know that hippos are actually the 3rd largest land mammal in the world? Yep, no idea how they thought we wouldn't notice one just disappearing. Interestingly, this hippo is far from the only thing in the Sing franchise to do a disappearing act right before our very eyes. Number 9. This movie also had a disappearing drawing to add to the list of magically vanishing things. In this case, it's actually more appearing than disappearing. In Rosalita's room, we see this drawing on the wall. In the next frame, when the kids are running out of the room, this drawing appears, which definitely wasn't there before. Unless one of these kids is a speed drawer, we're pretty sure this is a continuity error. Number 10. Miss Crawley's bucket disappears as well. Miss Crawley is known for her clumsiness.
Oh, it's not as bad as it looks.
In this scene in particular, she trips and drops a bucket, but just seconds later, the bucket is gone. Pretty spooky stuff. We sure hope Miss Crawley didn't say Macbeth in this theater or anything. Number 11. How exactly do Eddie and Nana stay dry when they're in a flooded building? The theater floods while this couple is inside it, and everyone and everything else that was in the building seems like it got wet, which is only natural, you know, because it's a flood. So how exactly is it possible that these two seemingly didn't get affected by the flood? We have no idea, but it does seem like they'd be great picks to ride Noah's Ark. You know, if floods have absolutely no effect on them. Number 12. Seems like maybe Rosita can teleport? At the end of Rosita and Gunter's dance routine, Rosita slides toward the front of the stage. At this moment, we can see that she and Gunter are far apart, and it's very clear based on the hand placement that Gunter certainly couldn't reach out and just touch her, right? Well, just a second later, the dancing duo is right next to each other. Gunter is even able to reach out and help Rosita up. Now, it's pretty clear based on this impressive dance routine that Rosita is light on her feet, but there's no way she got back there that quickly and still needed help getting up. Number 13. Have Sing's animators ever actually used a fire extinguisher before? We're guessing the answer is no. And hey, we get it. We haven't either. But when Mina uses the fire extinguisher, she doesn't pull the pin. Fire extinguishers don't actually work when the pin isn't pulled. So how did hers work? Movie magic, perhaps? No, it's an error. Definitely an error.
Well, yeah.
Great!
Number 14. Self-cleaning shorts are something we really wish someone would invent. It'd be so much easier eating an ice cream cone in the summertime without fear of drips. Still, as far as we know, self-cleaning shorts haven't actually been invented yet. So can anyone please tell us how exactly this scene happens? While in the restaurant, Eddie drips some of his sandwich contents onto his shorts. Yet when he's leaving the restaurant mere seconds later, he doesn't seem to have a stain. Very suspicious. Number 15. There's an interesting change in this baboon sweater that you might have missed. At the very start of the movie, Mike the Mouse gets a penny from this baboon. He then reaches out and grabs the baboon's yellow shirt collar. Yet when we switch to the very next shot, it looks like he is actually holding on to the green sweater. Nice handiwork there, Mike. Number 16. The voiceover says koala bear, and believe it or not, this is a pretty big mistake. The voiceover says,
but his plans to become the first koala bear in space.
So what's the problem? Did a koala already go into space? Not that we know of. Actually, the issue with this term is koala bear. Sure, you've likely heard this name for the cute, cuddly, actually sometimes vicious creatures before, and you may have even called them this name. But koala bear doesn't actually make any sense, because koalas aren't actually bears. They're marsupials. The more you know.
Peter's eye did that weird creepy thing where it went over his nose. Ah, ew, gross, look at that.
Family Guy creators made the show a fan favorite because of the embarrassing situations they put their beloved characters through for the sake of a punchline. But with a whopping 21 seasons under the belt, creators and animators were bound to make some hilarious slip-ups themselves. We're here to take you through all the mistakes you won't believe you missed, no matter how many times you've binged this series.
I know, I never seen anything like it.
Number 1. We've got to start off by giving some credit to creators for this first mistake. Stewie and Brian point out the show's mistakes.
I know we're not supposed to mess with the timeline, but should we call an ambulance?
The pair use Stewie's time machine to go back in time to find a buried bone. But they end up in different dimensions and into the show's pilot episode. They take the opportunity for some good old self-mockery. For one, we see Peter's eye going over his nose. Stewie's reaction is one we can all relate to.
Ah, ew, gross, look at that.
Later, Brian and Stewie look into a window at a group of Peter's friends we'd never see again and a TV that isn't even plugged in.
TV's not even plugged in.
Number 2. Speaking of the pilot, there are more animation mistakes Brian and Stewie didn't point out. But you know, we just have to. Seems it was a challenge for animators to draw characters' eyes right in the first episode.
And then there was that time at the ice cream store.
In a flashback of Peter eating ice cream, his eyes get strangely bigger and smaller. In another scene on the family's lawn, Stewie's eyes are drawn way too big. But hey, it was their first crack at it after all.
Ah, honey, I knew everything would turn out okay.
Number 3. During the episode Take My Wife, the couples get tricked into a tropical getaway. Turns out it's a twisted version of marriage counseling. In hopes of escaping, Peter shoots a flare at a plane and it comes crashing down.
You gotta help us!
While Cleveland puts up his hands to cover his head, something weird happens to his face. His mustache disappears for a moment, leaving only a strange outline on his face. It reappears moments later, so it's pretty tough to catch this mistake. Number 4. We knew this festival was going to bring some weirdness, but this? In episode 9 of season 13, Brian and Stewie attend the Rhode Island Folk Festival. A sign of the festival is seen hanging over the main stage. A few shots later, we can see the sign mistakenly reads Rhode Island Fork Festival instead of folk.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a hidden prank by animators, but it's likely a funny mistake. Number 5. Alright, now this one is defying Quahog logic. At the end of the episode, Into Harmony's Way, behind Peter we can see Spooner Street where the Griffins and most of their friends live. But look again, there seems to be an intersection next to Cleveland's house that just disappears in the next shot. It's never been part of Spooner Street before, and it never shows up again. Not sure what kind of space warp that was, but we'll chalk it up to human error.
You think you can forgive me?
Oh, Quagmire.
Number 6. Bet you were too busy looking at the Beebs to notice this one.
I'm not into that.
In Lois Comes Out of Her Shell, Lois gets into Justin Bieber's dressing room at his concert. But when we see her through the pop star's mirror, her arm is weirdly detached from her body, as if it's floating. Seconds later, it's right back on her body. No wonder JB was creeped out.
Just get your pants off, hon.
Stop right there!
Number 7. When a show focuses so much on killer jokes, background details can get lost. That's exactly what happens in Mom's the World.
We come from nothing, and we're gonna become nothing. The end. Night, Stewie.
There is clearly a painting hanging on Stewie's wall in this scene, but when he gets up to play with his ball, the painting vanishes. It's not exactly crucial to this episode's plot, but it is a mistake nonetheless. Number 8. An episode where Meg is taking Quagmire's advice? What could go wrong?
I want you to drink this glass of raw eggs.
I don't see any yolks.
Just drink it.
In episode 4 of season 12, Meg spills her lunch on a classmate and has to fight him.
3 o'clock, Friday. I will destroy you.
Right before the big fight, Quagmire is standing behind Meg as her coach, but in a creepy, hooded kind of way. In the next overhead shot, he disappears completely. Seems unlikely Quagmire could have run off that fast. Number 9. This episode is a fan favorite, but it didn't stop us from finding plot holes. In season 9's And Then There Were Fewer, almost the entire Quahog crew is invited to a dinner party. Before long, the night turns into a murder mystery. When the gang splits up to search for Muriel, Meg falls through floorboards and we assume she's trapped. The same happens to Tom Tucker. He gets trapped behind this secret wall. Moments later though, both Meg and Tom appear over Muriel's body as if they were never trapped. How could animators explain this plot hole? Number 10. Again with the eye mistakes? In the episode Seahorse Seashell Party, the family is in the living room fighting. But we're focused on something weird going on with Stewie. As Stewie gets off the couch, his left pupil jumps right out of his eye and sticks onto his forehead. Number 11. What did she just say? In episode 2 of season 5, the gang become enemies when a trophy they won mysteriously goes missing. When the wives are parked in a van as part of an espionage mission, there's a pretty obvious mistake. Lois mistakenly calls Bonnie Debbie.
When I get him home, I swear to God, I'm gonna grease up. That's fine, Debbie.
Debbie does sound pretty close to Bonnie, but that's still a pretty substantial mistake. Number 12. Sometimes mistakes are hidden in the background. Luckily, we catch even the most subtle errors like this one. In Season 3's Christmas special, the husbands ditch their families to roam around Quahog to drink. Joe takes a fall when he tries and fails to climb a light post. But look behind him. A store sign goes from reading Quahog Sporting Goods to Quahog Sporiting Goods. Seems animators should have kept more dictionaries on hand. Number 13. Whose car is that? Even though we can't help feeling bad for Meg and a fish out of water, it's one of the rare episodes where we get to see the mother-daughter duo as a main storyline. But here's the confusing part. When Lois and Meg leave for their vacation, they use the family's only car to travel. But later in the episode, when the women are still away, Peter is seen pulling into the driveway with the same car. How can the car be in two places at once? No, seriously, we want to hear theories for this one. Number 14. In the episode No Meals on Wheels, Peter discovers the wonders we all love about onesies. Warm, comfortable, and...
Dad!
Oh yeah, prone to static electricity. When Peter walks over to the couch, notice there's nothing on the floor. But when the camera pans out, there it is. A carpet appears out of thin air. The carpet is useful for Peter's new prank, but it doesn't make much sense that it just appeared like that. Number 15. In the episode Da Boom, Peter gets paranoid that the world is going to end. Naturally, he forces his family to hide in their basement. When Brian reaches the bottom, his head very obviously experiences an animation glitch, where it chops in half, then goes back to normal for the rest of the episode. This one's really quick, and by the looks of it, kinda painful.
Honey, are you pregnant?
No.
Number 16. We know Jolly Farm is supposed to be a magical place, but even this seems strange. When Stewie reveals to his fellow cast of Jolly Farm that he is a boy in the episode Ghosts Do What We Do, other children are seen sitting on the ground. In one shot, this child's hair is blonde, but in the next, it's a way darker shade of brown. Seems animators dropped the ball on this scene. We sure enjoyed finding these subtle mistakes you missed in Family Guy. But given that there's so many funny and detailed moments in this series, we wouldn't be surprised if we missed a few. Should we look at the mistakes we didn't mention in another video? Let us know about the ones you found in the comments. For all the details you want to know about your favorite animated shows and movies, subscribe to The Things Animated.